And here we are.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of Vishal and Company. Today, Vishal is going to tell us why he turned bullish on agriculture during Vancouver's heat wave. We are covering if space tourism is closer than expected after Virgin Galactic received the FAA. We're going to talk a bit about Bitcoin and its dash out of China, the long-term effects of crypto, and why you shouldn't day trade cryptos. There's a lot to talk about, so we will just get right into it. Vishal, I'll pass it over to you.
All right, thanks, Maddie. So it is sort of a odd week. There is a lower volume because we are heading to the July 4th holiday, and of course, U.S. markets will be closed on Monday. Canadian markets were closed yesterday, but with that low volume, we still have data, and the markets are still open here. You can see S&P 500 new record highs, NASDAQ new record highs. It looks like the Dow Jones is going to close into new record high territories too by the end of the day. And this is going to sort of lead into agriculture because today was, of course, the U.S. non-farm payrolls, which is technically it's their employment data. And it goes back in the day when farming jobs and agricultural jobs were not counted for employment, still are not counted, hence why we have non-farm payrolls. And as you can see here, for the month of June, the U.S. added 850,000 jobs in June, better than expected. However, the unemployment rate unexpectedly rose to 5.9% versus the 5.6% estimate. And if you guys remember back in the day, whenever there was bad data, whenever markets priced in bad data and missed the expectations, markets would shoot higher because basically traders, investors, the market itself was pricing in the fact that now the Fed is not going to raise rates anytime sooner. A lot of people thought that this job data would be good and maybe markets would fall because now if you're getting the economy strengthening, maybe the Fed's going to start to taper sooner than expected. But as you can see, that's not the case. And I think it has to do with this unemployment rate unexpectedly rising to 5.9% versus the 5.6 there. And a lot of analysts are sort of perplexed by this data. Like, it's good, but it's still bad at the same time. But it seems like the markets are seeing that as a sign of bad data because the Fed will not change policy anytime soon. So before we look at space travel, let's just quickly look at agriculture because I guess we're talking about non-farm payrolls anyways, but here on the West Coast, I mean, we had a record heat wave, temperatures close, above 40 degrees Celsius for our American friends, 40 degrees Celsius in some of the cities here on the West Coast. And I think some of you guys know I've been pretty bullish on agriculture going forward. I wrote an article back in December as a New Year 2021 outlook about Canadians to pay more for food in 2021. And all these targets have been met. And we're, I think, 6 months in to 2021, but most of these targets were met in the first few months of the year. Basically, it's funny because this heat wave came at, I guess, an opportune time when I released this article. But I look at 4 bullish cases. One is Jim Rogers. He's basically saying no one's looking at food, right? No one's looking at agriculture. No young person wants to be a farmer anymore, right? Everyone wants to be maybe a doctor, a pharmacist, maybe a crypto trader nowadays. And the average age of farmers in America is well above 60, and I believe it's the same here in Canada as well. We're always going to need food. Start looking at food. It's just a sector that's not really appreciated.
We're basically heading into a food crisis.
Yeah, there we go, Gil.
Population, food scarcity, food safety.
Exactly.
Some people have spotted this and are going to make a mint off of it. For instance, Bill Gates buying up all the arable land in the United States, which is frightening, actually. It doesn't give me any comfort to know that one person owns all of the land that can grow something. So we've either got big ag or him. So we don't have the small farmer anymore, which is, I think, a fixture and a foundation of capitalism in its best form, right? This is the destruction of the framework and foundation that have created the country, and it's not going to be a happy moving forward. Then there's the water crisis, but we'll deal with the food one first.
We'll deal with the food one first. Well, sticking with that, the weather, that's a big thing. We've heard in Iowa, I don't know if you guys remember back in October of 2020, 50% of their crops were lost. And that's Iowa is basically where all the corn and wheat, possibly soy as well in the States is grown. And 50% of it was wiped out because of a freak storm. And then just a few days ago, a freak hailstorm hit Iowa, which could cut the portion of Iowa's corn yield by 10 to 15%. Of course, here on the West Coast, California is actually a pretty big area it has, I think, the best agricultural land in the States. And we just heard that President Joe Biden is set to meet with the governors there. Not just California, but Oregon and Washington State as well, because the U.S. is now dealing with the worst drought in 20 years. So going back to your water thing there, Galen. So keep an eye out for that. I think basically with all these weird weather temperatures, crops and harvests are going to be disrupted. Don't worry though, because I think we will just, basically adopt indoor greenhouse or vertical integrated farming. So that's sort of what this article is about. But there might just be that crisis we might have to deal with.
It won't be a simple shift. I'm sorry.
No,
it won't be a simple shift. It will be a painful transition, and there will be shortages, and will continue to be shortages if we're forced to only grow things indoors, because some stuff you can't grow indoors.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. Or we all go vegan or something. I don't know. But this is the supply chain thing. I don't know if you guys heard, but now there's headlines of shortages for meat products, for beef, for pork, and chicken wings. The chicken wings one was something I think we discussed in a previous show, but that's still happening. And believe it or not, but there was actually a cyber attack on JBS, which is one of the largest meat producers in the States. So their North American plants and their plants in Australia were taken down. Yep. So, I mean, this is like, I was never thinking we'd ever see a headline like this about cyber attacks and meat supply, but now it's something that we have to keep in mind if we're going to invest in this sector. So watch for supply chain issues, and perhaps it's starting already now. We're seeing a lot of restaurants. Basically, they're saying that because they've been in lockdown and restriction, they haven't basically kept normal inventory, right? Because there's no need to. And now they're deciding it's time to, but the supply chains are now getting pressured because there's all this demand coming in, or maybe there's another critical issue behind the scenes that we don't know of.
I think it might be momentary, but the fact is there is a pressure on the supply chain already, and them returning from hiatus, I guess you could say, is causing even further pressure on it. So food prices will continue to rise, especially those prices of food that you purchase outside of your home to eat outside of your home. I don't know what it's going to do to the supermarket, most likely raise prices there as well.
Yeah. And with that as well, with the supermarket prices, because oil is going up and it's heading higher, that means transportation costs are increasing, which means they'll have to increase prices to cover the transportation costs, and they usually pass that down to the consumer. So watch rising oil prices as well, plus all those technical things. Another thing I think I've mentioned is the green clean energy, really, because if you're going to be building solar panels and also for wind turbines, they have to be in areas that have a lot of sun and have a lot of wind, and those tend to be the best areas for farmland. So there's going to be this competition here between green versus farm, right? Green energy versus agriculture. The U.S. is actually in a really good position. They actually have some of the best farmland, but places like China and even Japan, they're going to have some issues, implementing green energy in the forward. And I'm referring to this gentleman here, Peter Zeihan, who wrote the book Geopolitical, or is that book? He wrote a geopolitical book just lately, Disunited Nations: The Scramble for Power in an Ungoverned World. And I really recommend that read in terms of clean energy and agriculture. And again, there is a way to get both, and that is indoor farming. But as Galen said, that transition is probably not going to be smooth. It's going to take some time. But yeah, definitely take a look at this read. And I think more eyes are going to be looking at this sector given what we've just seen with the weather here, and depending on how severe this drought in California begins or takes off. We'll have to watch and see. But speaking about liftoff and takeoff, is space travel or space tourism closer than we or the market thinks it is? Just last week, Virgin Galactic actually got an FFA, which essentially means now that it's a license from the Federal Aviation Administration approving passenger space flights. And
yay, all the billionaires can climb into a spaceship and take off. Wow.
I have no problem with this.
Space
I have
travel
no problem.
will never be
Don't get me
commercial.
wrong.
I have to tell you, it will never be commercial within our lifetime. This is ridiculous.
But what I do have a problem with is letting them back in.
We'll get to the battle of the billionaires there, but Gillen, I agreed with you too. I thought, I think it's going to take some time. However, we saw this unbelievable move in less than a few weeks here on Virgin Galactic, and to me, it's sort of saying that the market was caught. This usually happens when things are not priced in, and I don't think the market was just like us, and we're thinking, hey, space travel is ridiculous. It's not going to come, anytime soon. But then this approval of the FAA, the media is always actually looking at SpaceX, but Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic have actually been doing tests recently as well that haven't really been covered on the news. And
because Musk is buying all the journalists.
Maybe there is that, but I mean, look at the price of the stock is climbed quite high, and I think a lot of people are now beginning to price in space tourism. We all know that the battle of the billionaires, there they are, Musk, Branson, or Sir Richard Branson, and Jeff Bezos. And Bezos is actually flying out to space. He's going to be the first billionaire, I guess, in space. And his flight is taking place on July 20th, 2021, which is, of course, the 52nd anniversary of Apollo 11 moon landing. It's also my birthday, but I don't think they're flying out because of that. I think they're flying out because of the Apollo 11 anniversary. So it's going to be, I guess, quite exciting for the Apollo fans there. But we've just heard now, there was rumors that,
Look at that guy's face. Look at that guy's face. I mean, do you honestly think he's not just going home?
We'll have to wait and see.
He is his own mini-me.
He's his own mini-me, okay. So, there's this, of course, when we're talking about billionaires, they want to outdo each other. They want to be the first. And there was rumors that Branson said, hey, you know what? I got to get in space before Bezos, right? So I got to beat him. We have to launch me into space. We're good to go. We're all safe, I hope. So launch me into space before July 20th. And guess what, folks? Virgin Galactic is going to launch Sir Richard Branson into space on July 11th. So he is aiming to beat Jeff Bezos to space. So we're going to be getting Branson into space before Bezos. And I don't know if there's any...
I've been saying we should launch politicians into space for years, but this is not what I was expecting.
Now we finally have our opportunity.
There we go. So I mean, what do you guys think here? Do you think this is we're going to see?
Dude, this is just like cannabis 1.0. It's just all sorts of bullshit being fed to the masses, and we're all going, "Oh yeah, great! Let me put $1 against that." And honestly, like $24 million to take a fucking ride in a spaceship, and that was as an auction, right?
That was for.
Can you imagine what the regular cost would be? Nobody anywhere near normal will ever be able to fucking climb into a seat on a spaceship ever.
So Virgin Galactic actually has some cheaper options. Apparently, they
get strapped to the side.
Well, they've sold 600 tickets, and the prices are between $200,000 and $250,000.
Wait a minute, I got that in my bathroom. Hold on, I'll be right back.
250,000 is the cheaper option.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, because I think the Blue Origin one was 25 million, right? With Bezos, like if you get to sit next to him or something.
What's the economy class look like?
I know, right? We'll have to wait and see, but yeah, let's keep this on a radar because I think this is pretty exciting on a scientific obviously for
Sort
science
of.
and all that.
The technology that's being fronted right now is no better than what we already have. Basically, the only thing this has done is, and it needed to be done, but it could have been done with better oversight, was breaking the supply chain that currently exists in the American government through its space program with McDonnell Douglas and Lockheed Martin and those other guys that are just making money hand over fist. That's all that really needed to happen. Because basically the technology that Musk is using, that he's claiming to a certain extent is, theirs, has existed within NASA for the last 20 years. This is talking about the re-landing of rockets. It's not that it's not that it's something brand new. It's just Musk once again peddling the bullshit wheel to let everybody know that he's smarter than all of us, which he isn't. He also made a comment recently about ULA and how they would have been dead as a doornail without the help of the Pentagon. It seems to be the pot calling the kettle black, because it occurs to me that SpaceX would be just a fucking fantasy if NASA hadn't have bit the pill. Right? So it's just ridiculous that they're throwing this shit back at each other. None of them are capable of doing... I'm sorry. There we go. We've lost all our viewers. I guess I pissed everybody off.
I was going to ask your opinion on this, though. I mean, we're seeing Bezos going to space. We're seeing Branson going to space. And, everyone's been hearing about SpaceX. It looks like Musk had a bit of a frustrated tweet.
A temper tantrum, shall we say.
Yeah, do you think he's feeling a bit of the pressure here? He's a bit acting childish because everyone else is going to space and they're basically beating him into space?
Yep. Well, the thing is, the regulations are there and for a reason, and have been there for 50 some odd years because of experience. He's a maverick in the sense of, like, he doesn't need to be regulated. Well, he does. How about, let's just put out an example of him and the Chinese people with his delivering of the Tesla, where he mocked a woman that actually protested at one of the car shows, saying that when she applied the brakes, the car sped up and actually went out of control. Well, all of a sudden now they've launched an apology after they've mocked her because they said that she was, lying and this was all foolish. Now they're recalling over 200,000, almost 300,000 vehicles to replace the software, which effectively was causing what this woman was talking about.
Basically, yep.
Right? And he blows that off. Then he has the gall on the anniversary of the CCP to say that the economic growth in China is amazing, and with little or any kind of reference to how they got to be that way in the first place, especially in infrastructure. Well, they loaded themselves with debt to the point where they may not even be able to recover in building these super city projects. So if he's applauding that as progress moving forward, this guy's got his tongue so far up their butt, it's not even funny, because he's about to lose his market share in China. Sorry,
it's a little funny.
There we go.
Neo is about to take over.
Sorry, guys.
No worries.
There's more coming, but I'll back off for a bit.
When we're plotting these things, we allot 5 or 7 minutes. We can just go off.
But speaking about Musk, Joseph, has he been saying anything about cryptos lately?
Not as far as I know. I think he's kept relatively quiet about.
He's been doing his Dogecoin dance.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
he's an idiot. He really is.
When you look at, sorry, go ahead, Joseph. I don't understand how Elon Musk has as many followers as he does, giving the prognostications about all these coins that he is. I mean, yeah, he's gotten some flack and some feedback and he's gotten shat on in the previous because he's made people lose money. But I'm like, he's still going off on Doge. And if you have a look at the Dogecoin chart, it's mostly all red now. I mean, it's down like what, 40-45%, like in the past 2 weeks, I think. It's like that's more or less what I expected. Yeah, that's more or less what I expected. We're going to see a short rise, and then everything's going to get on fire and fall off.
Speaking of fire, you should drive a Tesla, because apparently it'll start on fire, and then the electricity will cut off, and you won't be able to get out of the car.
That is not my idea of a happening Saturday. I'm sorry, Galen.
No.
No. Well, speaking of things, beginning to decidedly not fall to earth, The sky, as it turns out, is actually not falling. Do you like my transition there? That was
very
pretty.
nice.
That was
That
pretty.
was good. I like
That was great. You're doing my job for me.
Well, that was more or less my opening line of my story. It's like all news reports indicate that the sky is not falling. And the reason for that is because, of course, we have this, the movement of Bitcoin out of China is the CCP basically gets on their case. Now, you're going to have to give me half points for pronunciation because I've only seen these things written, but we have Huobi, who suspended mine hosting in China. They're the 8th largest mining pool in the world. They contribute 4% of the world's Bitcoin hash rate. The crypto miner Hashcow, who owns 10 mining projects in China, won't be buying any more rigs. And OKX, a top 10 exchange, has suspended activities. I mean, that's just a small drop in the bucket comparison to actually what's going on in there. And these companies are spreading out and they're leaving China, and that is great for Bitcoin. I mean, for the long term, it also ties into why you don't want to day trade.
Mm-hmm.
The reason why you don't want to day trade, and the reason why it's great for Bitcoin is because more decentralization is the cure to this problem. Now we're seeing a lot of red in the Bitcoin chart. It's pretty much all across the board except for the year to date right now. The reason for that is because of the mass exodus. And as soon as these places start getting set up, we will start seeing hash rate return, because we've had anywhere between 25 and 20%, 25 and 27% change in the overall hash rate right now, which is affected the difficulty of mining and made life difficult for, well, just about everybody except for companies already in the business who realize they have a short-term opportunity to pick up more Bitcoin cheaper electricity cost, cheaper opportunity cost, operating cost than they probably will have possibly ever again.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, also for the investor, I mean, we're probably not going to see this price again. It would be a opportune time to wait for a bottom and get it if you were so inclined.
Now,
how would you? Yep, go ahead.
For me, Joseph, I would feel very much reticent to sort of jump in at all, to a certain extent, because basically still all of these coins are speculative, right? None of them have achieved any sort of use, and whoever starts using them as currency to a certain extent because of the violent fluctuation in value is an idiot, right? They could be passing up on gaining or screwing the owner of whatever they purchased off of because of a drop, right? So basically the value of these coins is all speculative and dependent on the trading back and forth. For me, look, we lost all our viewers again. For me, I have such bad news. For me, I think that if you're going to invest in cryptocurrency, is to find yourself something that is a fraction of a cent and actually delivers something different than the rest. Now, Musk is just saying shit in whenever he speaks. He just blathers. It doesn't really matter. He has no backing or any intelligence. So when I'm talking about this, the Shiba coin actually has something interesting because it goes against the idea of getting rid of the asset, of trading it and keeping it as a long-term collateral asset, right? Because they remove coins from the table, and if you don't bury your coins, they are removed from the table, right? So this is an incentive to buy and hold, which is something that we haven't been accustomed to in the stock market for probably since the 80s, 90s, when it started to go crazy on Silicon Valley, and then we had the dot-com bust. But every time after that, there's always been this bubble that has occurred, and we've just been investing wildly in the market, trying to earn money on a daily basis. We've turned it into a casino, and it isn't just the retail investor. It is the algos and the big trading houses that are playing both sides of the coin, scraping money up every day when no one is attempting to really build value. And I think that's a huge disservice to the market and to people that actually produce things. I find it offensive that Tesla is still trading at the level that it is because the company has failed to perform for years. and will never perform to the level that it needs to achieve the valuation it has right now. So we're sick and we need some help.
Well, just to support your point there on Tesla, dude. Like when news about a 300,000 car recall comes in, that should be pretty bad for the stock. Like that's fundamentally pretty bad news. But the stock price just completely ignored it, which is sort of indicating, this mania, right? People just chasing yield and now disregarding any fundamentals at all.
Yes, very true.
Which is crazy. Which is crazy. So Joseph, if you're going to be bullish on crypto right now, would you be looking at the tokens, or would you be playing things such as HUD-8, Galaxy Digital, Rocket? What do you think has a better rate of return, or would you be splitting your cash?
Well, in terms of crypto mining, I like Marathon, I like Hive, and I like HUD-8.
Okay.
Those are pretty much my three choices. I guess TMG, because they're in the Crypto Climate Accord.
Now, do all of these mine Bitcoin or everything, or only alts, or?
Hive mines Bitcoin, Ethereum, and I think just Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Okay.
HUD-8 does Bitcoin, Marathon does Bitcoin, DMG does Bitcoin, and I think an array of the smaller altcoins too.
Okay.
The reason, my preference is for Hive, because they have, of course, the Ethereum backing, which means that they don't. I mean, if Bitcoin hits the skids, and they still have the option of offering and receiving a secondary revenue stream through offering decentralized finance. Access to DeFi. I mean, it's diversification. I mean, you can't rely on just one coin. I mean, who knows what Bitcoin's going to do next week?
That's the thing, right? Everybody thought Nortel was a winner, right? That there's classic cases of huge corporations that we thought were in the forefront of whatever movement was taking place. Suddenly they're gone. So this is the reason why I say be careful, especially if Bitcoin.
Of course.
Because being the first out the door isn't necessarily the best thing. And could also mean, because many of the companies that came out that were really big on top in cannabis when it first started rolling out disappeared.
They all disappeared, yeah, a lot of them.
Right? And when this actually happens, when cryptocurrency actually is made into something that's actually something, it'll be just like cannabis. It'll be consolidated. There'll be about 3 or 4, maybe 5 players, and the rest will just fall away. And we don't know at all who those players might be. That was a happy note.
I was just going to say, that was ominous. We
Maddie,
have
are you buying the dip here? Maddie, are you buying the dip here in cryptos?
Sorry, what did you say there, Vishal? I didn't hear you.
I was asking Maddie if she's going to be buying the dip here in cryptos.
No. I don't understand crypto. I don't know if I'll ever understand cryptos enough to invest in it, because I feel like if I've learned anything from all of you and my time at EG, it would be to not invest in things you don't understand. Like fundamentally, like just can't wrap your head around. Right. So I'm still learning. I'll continue to just bother Joseph. Maybe years down the line, when all of this is settled, there'll be one company and I'll be like, I get it now. Are you?
I'm considering now that I read Joseph's article here on HUD-8. Not saying we're going to buy it, but I'm looking at HUD-8. I'm looking at Hive there. Just technically, the charts look good, but it really depends on if Bitcoin holds this 30K level, which is so far so good. And Joseph, you think this might be the bottom?
I'm hoping so.
You're hoping so? Okay. Yeah.
Musk hopes so. Let me tell you, he bought in at about 35, so he's hoping that it's going to bounce, because his next quarter is going to suck. Speaking of Musk, just as an ending thing, he's juiced his numbers yet again by allowing people to reserve a Cybertruck for $100 deposit, which I think is absolute bullshit. It's mostly just to pump his numbers. Yeah, so he can say that, oh, yeah, we've got 100,000 or 800,000 on order, because $100 is nothing. you could walk out on that investment anytime and it wouldn't matter, right? He's doing it just to juice his books.
This is why I think they delivered this much. I didn't read about this, but there is still like,
Yeah,
apparently they delivered 201,000, but
I
I
don't
haven't
know. I
read
don't know
about
how
it. 'Cause
truthful
apparently
those numbers
it could be viewed as slightly conservative.
are.
We'll have to see.
Anyway, there we go. I should shut up.
There we go.
Alrighty, we made perfect time. We did so well today, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Yes, we
Take care,
certainly
everyone.
will. Thank you
See you
very
next
much.
week.
See you guys.
Bye.